What's going on YouTube? So the Tucson has long been one of Hyundai's best-selling models, which is why it's a very big deal when they make changes to it. And we've certainly been impressed with the Tucson in the past, and now we've spent a week with this refreshed 2025 model. So with important updates, especially to the interior, did this week prove it's ahead of a lot of the competition? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Now, like always, let's go ahead and get started with what's under the hood and our spec dump. So you've got three different powertrain selections. We have the hybrid powertrain, which is a 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine plus electric componentries for a total system power of 231 horsepower. It's paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission, and our combined fuel economy for 2025 is 35 mpg.
Now, the base price is $28,000, and if you're looking to buy a Hyundai Tucson or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, of course, we're going to be taking it out for a spin later on. While we're on that drive, we'll talk about our real-world fuel economy over the past 7 days. We'll also be getting our official Kentucky sound level reading, and at the end discussing if we like this car better, worse, or the same after living with it this week.
But first, let's go ahead and close up the hood because Hyundai has made ample changes to both the exterior and especially the interior. While most things in this compact crossover class are very boring to look at, Hyundai has always gone a very bold and aggressive route with this Tucson. For the 2025 refresh, they revised the overall look, but it's still extremely aggressive, especially when you look at this overall fascia here, which is a little bit more squared off this year, but still integrates in different lighting elements, which is super unique overall. Down here in your lower fascia, this is also revised, and you'll notice here on the Limited, we've got this kind of matte silver finish that goes around through here. Speaking of the lighting though, let's take a look at that. Just like before, you've got your daytime running light and turn signal indicator is actually disguised into the grille itself. It is fully LED, and then separated down here are your LED headlights. So you get reflector LEDs on all the trim levels except this Limited. This actually upgrades you to projector LED headlights, and these are extremely impressive headlights. They're really, really good, especially for a mainstream brand at this price point. And then as we walk around to the back, this has always had a very bold design, and that does continue mostly unchanged for 2025.
Yeah, as far as some of the design elements, we have a big spoiler, an integrated wiper underneath. Our Hyundai logo is actually going to be integrated like in the glass itself. And then taking a look at our taillights, that's why Drew went ahead and hopped inside. We're going to see if all the taillight elements are LED. So as you can see, we have an LED brake light. All of our accenting is LED. However, our reverse light and turn signal are both going to be incandescent and integrated down here in the lower bumper. Now, do be aware you have to get at least the SEL convenience for the LED taillight unit itself. Now, as we drop down to the lower fascia, the Limited's going to spice things up with this silver accent, and all Tucsons tow 2,000 pounds regardless of what powertrain you choose.
Moving on to the wheels, you have 17 through 19-inch alloy options. This, as we said, is the highest end Limited, so it's got the 19-inch contrast design. Really stands out and matches nicely with the overall design. You also will notice that you've got some dark color moldings around the wheel arches and the lower part of the body. That's kind of disguised a little bit by today's darker color, so if you like that, then choose a darker color. In terms of the mirrors, you're looking at heating and blind spot monitoring on almost every single model.
Now, at the side of the Tucson, we have an overall vehicle length of 182.7 inches, which is a pretty decent size for this segment. Of course, you do have quite a lot of design elements, including the silver piece going on at the side, as well as some roof rails. Now, as far as your safety systems are concerned, one of the things that I'm really happy to tell you is that you are going to get all 4 of your active safety features as standard, regardless of which trim level you choose. That's not to say you can't add some extra features, though, because this Limited will additionally add highway drive assist, which allows for, some assisting while you're driving on the highway. It also... Now, it's not to say you can't add more features, because here on the Limited, you're additionally going to get highway drive assist, as well as rear auto braking and Hyundai's Smart Park system. But guys, really the bigger changes are on the inside, and we can't wait to tell you what our impression is after a week. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
And if you want to know about all the latest and greatest rides, then make sure to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the newest cars. All right, moving on to the cabin now. Here's our latest Hyundai key fob. It's got that kind of H look to it and the pebble-like shape. You do have remote start on the fob as well as smart entry, so you just grab behind the handle and that will unlock the door. And then take a look at the interior. Now, if you're in a lot of other Hyundai products, it'll seem kind of familiar to you because it does borrow things from that. But if you remember actually last year's model, it's a really significant interior change. There's tons and tons of parts in here that have been updated. But before we get into that, let's of course talk about our seats. This limited trim is the trim level that gets you real leather seating. You got 3 different color choices on board. As you can see, we've got this light gray. I think a lot of people are choosing this color. It does have good stitching details and perforation through the center section. In terms of adjustments, you have 10 ways of power adjustment with 2-way lumbar support. This version does also get memory seats as well, located right there on the door trim. But without further ado, let's get inside. Now, closing up the door, let's evaluate the cabin materials. Over here on the armrest portion, we've got leatherette running through here with a stitching detail. The center section is composed of a cloth trim that matches the seats, and then a strip of leatherette, and then a soft touch plastic along the top. Moving up here to the upper part, this is covered in a leatherette trim. We have a thin strip of cloth going across the vent. And then as we move down to the lower sections, they don't do any padding against the console, but everything does feel nice and solid for the segment. Let's fire it up with the push button start. Now, jumping into some individual details, this really is a big element of the interior just right from the start here, because if you remember previously, you had very integrated gauges and a display that was inside the dash. Now it kind of floats out like many of the other Hyundai products, and it's one big unit here, a panoramic kind of dual display setup. Now with the Limited, of course, is the premium reconfigurable 12.3-inch display. You can change the design. This also comes with blind spot cameras as well, so that when you signal, you see that. And then new for 2025, we have 2 things. So first of all, the thing I like the most is that we've got a head-up display. That's pretty rare for this segment, and like I said, new for 2025. It's very crystal clear and has a lot of good functionality. And then over here on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, we now have a fingerprint reader, and this will just allow you to actually use the digital key system. You can start the car like that, or you can just sync different vehicle settings to your driver profile. Now, taking a look at the steering wheel, this is a new design as well this year. Nice leather wrapped. It is heated, of course, manual, tilt, and telescoping. You also have rain sensing wipers right there. And by the way, we're just kind of talking mostly about our real world impressions and the things you get here on the Limited trim, but we do also have a separate review and a website article that will break down the different features on each trim level of the Tucson lineup, if you want to check that out. Now, in terms of interior storage, very impressed by this over the last week. There is a ton, and let's kind of go through that. First of all, inside the console, you'll notice we have donuts. Of course, the donut is our logo, and we like to check the volume by putting stuffed donuts in the center console. This fits 11 in there, which is just one shy of the dozen to pass the donut test. But the thing with the Tucson here is that there's far more storage than just right there. They're really giving Toyota and Honda a run for their money in the class here, because we have a wireless phone charger, we have 2 cup holders, we have this enormous pass-through so you can stick all types of objects, whatever you have right there. And then they've now added this brand new passenger storage shelf. So you don't even have to be the passenger to use it, but it's really very versatile, especially for sticking a phone or loose objects up there. Now that's made possible by the fact that we have a new electronic shifter that's mounted here to the steering column. Just twist up for drive. You do have paddle shifters on the steering wheel. And then down for reverse. When you go into reverse, you're going to see here on the Limited, we've got the 360-degree camera system with active trajectory as well as front and rear parking sensors. And then you can press that button right there. That pulls up our very impressive 3D spin view. We said it in the past, I'll say it again, this is basically exactly the same thing you get in the really high-end Genesis products, and very impressive for a vehicle in this segment. Over here on this panel, you'll notice that you've got some drive mode controllers. This is also where you have your brake hold. The electronic parking brake is located on the other side of the steering wheel. Now, moving into this area, it's also new for 2025. We have a dual zone automatic climate control setup. You've got big knobs here to adjust the temperature itself, which makes that part easy. The rest of it is inside of this little display here, so you can quickly adjust through there. It's overall pretty nice and responsive, especially when you're engaging with things like your heated seats and your ventilated seats. By the way, both of these do work really, really well. A lot in the segment don't even offer ventilated seats, and these do offer powerful ventilated seats. And then up above that, you'll notice a row of controls for our audio system. We'll go ahead and give it a sample. Yeah, so overall, over the past week, we found this 8-speaker Bose sound system to be pretty good, probably middle of the pack in the segment. There are going to be better options if audio quality is your best choice, but overall, it's pretty good. All right, now one thing that really does stand out, though, for this class is this infotainment system. So this is a 12.3-inch display, but critically, it's now running a new infotainment software called CCNC. And this is really a huge step forward for Hyundai. This pairs your phone in literally like 3 seconds. It has wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay now, which of course is going to be critical over the 2024 model. And overall, it's just really very fast and responsive. If you don't want to use phone projection, you can, of course, use the built-in navigation system as well. Up top, we've got an auto-dimming mirror with HomeLink universal remotes. Then I'll go ahead and slide back the sunshade on our large panoramic sunroof. And as you can see, the front panel does open up.
All right, so let's dive into the rear seat area of this Tucson. Now, that's always been a very strong element for this model, and that's going to continue for this refreshed model year. So as far as the space is concerned, we're sitting at 41.3 inches of legroom and about 39 inches of headroom. That means for someone who is 5'9" like myself, you are going to have plenty of space back here. This seat is actually adjusted to Drew, who is 5'8", and look at how much additional knee room we have. We have about 9.5 inches of additional knee room. That's really good. Also, my feet can slide easily up underneath the seat, and these seats do recline a very good distance. Not quite as far as the Honda CR-Vs, but these definitely will recline enough to get you a lot of comfort. Now, as far as the features, we do have a central armrest with 2 cup holders inside. One thing I do want to point out is that when it comes to a big Stanley water bottle, it doesn't fit here in the center compartment, so do keep that in mind. And then moving to our features here in the center, we do have vents right here. Additionally, down below that, we have 2 USB-C ports to keep everything nice and charged up. If you take a look over at the door trim, we have a pretty nice one. It's hard touch on the upper part, so do keep that in mind. That's different compared to the front, but the rest of it's either leatherette, some mixture of a cloth as well. And then there's a button that I'm sure you're probably really happy to see, and that's that if you get the limited grade Tucson, that's going to give you heated back seats. That's actually a feature that some in the segment, Honda CR-V is one of them, does not include. Now, walking up to the tailgate, if you choose SEL grade, you will get a power tailgate with the hands-free ability. And let's talk about how much space you have. That's going to be a really nice element for this Tucson. We're sitting at about 39 cubic feet of space with the seats in position. If we fold those seats down, which we can easily do with these little levers right here, that's going to give us a maximum of around 74 cubic feet. Now, if you're curious as to how that compares to its rivals, I would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. Now, the reason we'd encourage you to do that is because that will actually allow you to see all of the numerous compact crossovers that you could cross-shop this Tucson with, and you can rank them based on the categories that are most important to you. So if you want to know the best cargo capacity in the segment, you can find that on that chart. You can also find things like best technology, best powertrains, fuel economy, etc., etc. So I definitely think that's a very useful tool, especially if you're shopping in this very busy segment, that's for sure. Now back to the Tucson. 74 cubic feet, that does mean it's a really spacious offering for this segment. And let's go ahead and get our cargo length, width, and height figures. That's something we do in all of our Car Confections reviews. The seats do fold flat with the floor. It's just not exactly flat right now, so to keep that in mind. We're looking at 72 inches of overall cargo length from behind Drew's 5'8" driving position. From behind the second row, 38 inches of length. As far as width, 41 inches wide. And then height, also very good, about 29 inches of height. If we lift up the cargo floor, you will notice that we do not have a spare tire, but we have quite maybe a little bit of extra space. As you can see, we have a little bit of an ice scraper down underneath of the floor. You additionally have a 12-volt outlet as well. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the refreshed Hyundai Tucson. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a few different things, as you can see on the screen right now. We'll also be getting our official Kentucky sound level reading, as well as discussing our real-world fuel economy over the past week. But first, we want to go ahead and start with a hard acceleration.
All right. And that was 60 miles per hour with the hybrid version of the Tucson. Now, like we talked about at the spec dump, this is actually available in 3 different powertrains. You can get a traditional ICE or internal combustion engine. You can also get the hybrid powertrain, which is what we have, and you can get a plug-in hybrid powertrain if you want a larger battery pack. We'll go into some individual details of that in just a second, but in terms of this hybrid powertrain, it's a 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. With the electric componentry, it makes 231 horsepower.
It is worth noting that is up over the previous Tucson Hybrid. They added more powerful electric motors to this Tucson Hybrid for the 2025 model year. So that's going to be up 5 horsepower over the 2024. Now, this hybrid powertrain is also up quite a bit of power over the standard gas model that Drew was mentioning earlier. That comes in at 187 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque out of its 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. Additionally, the plug-in hybrid, if you're wanting the other end of the spectrum, that essentially takes this powertrain setup, adds a 13.8 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack, and that's going to have 268 total system horsepower.
Overall power is pretty good for this segment. With the hybrid having 231 horsepower, that is pretty strong numbers for this class of vehicle, and it gets it up to speed quite nicely. Now, in terms of the other element of the powertrain, which is kind of one of the more unique elements about a Hyundai or Kia hybrid system, is the fact that it does have a traditional 6-speed automatic transmission. Most of the rivals are going to give you a CVT or an eCVT. In this case, having that traditional automatic does mean you avoid that drone that you get from a lot of the rivals. I know that means a lot to a lot of you guys, especially if you accelerate kind of hard off the line. You don't have that drone. This is actually a very quiet engine overall. You don't hear it very much. In terms of the transmission itself, it is a 6-speed, so it doesn't have a lot of gears to choose from. It can be a little bit slow sometimes between shifts, but it's really just going to be a matter of personal preference, whether you like that eCVT better and maybe being a little bit more responsive, or if you like the fact that you don't have any drone with this model.
But we've turned on to our designated strip of road where we always talk about ride quality, and that's one area where I'm incredibly impressed, and as we spent the entire week with this Tucson, I've just became even more impressed as time went on. I think this genuinely has one of the very best ride qualities in the entire segment, and it is worth noting that we have the fully loaded example with the larger wheels on the outside, and it still does a fantastic job of just soaking up any of the bumps that you may hit in the road. It feels very solid and cohesive in here as well, so I really just appreciate a lot of things about the ride quality of this vehicle. That That being said, it is definitely tuned more for the comfort side of things. If you compare it to something like a Mazda, for instance, this is definitely not going to be as driver-focused driving dynamics-wise, but it does have that comfort aspect for those of you looking for that.
And that was the sport mode acceleration, just to kind of show you guys a little sample of that. And I have to say, for 2025, the handoff between electric and the engine power, I think Hyundai has finally caught up with Toyota and Honda. Like, this is just absolutely seamless.
Let's go ahead and get our sound level reading. We have it on fan speed 1. Nice long sample there. For our official Kentucky sound level reading, 55.8 decibels is what we are sitting at. I don't have to sit here and guess how it compares to all of its numerous rivals. We can find that at carconfections.com/sound level readings. That does definitely place this as one of the quietest options in the segment, that's for sure. It's definitely going to take the top third of quietest sound level readings in this compact SUV segment, and man, I tell you, there are a lot of options, so that's pretty impressive in itself. And I will also point out it's quite windy outside today, so that's even another thing to add in.
And Mason already mentioned this is not a particularly athletic SUV. Most things in the segment aren't. So if you're considering something like a Mazda, it's not going to be that athletic, but it can hold its own on a back road.
All right, but let's get into our Car Confection Slam Dunk and Airball, our favorite and least favorite element. Drew, why don't you kick us off with the Slam Dunk?
Slam Dunk's got to be just how well-rounded this is, especially with the improvements for 2025. They took the few things that we really had to complain about, and they remedied them, and just makes this so holistically good that it's really, really compelling.
Yeah. On the airball side of things, we had to really just kind of start nitpicking. One feature I don't like personally is the rear lighting. I wish they had really moved the incandescent turn signal and reverse light up into the actual taillight unit itself. I really was hoping for that in the refresh, because I honestly think it's a little bit of a safety issue to have your turn signal mounted so low, and also it being incandescent is kind of cheap looking. But this is a Tucson hybrid, so what is our fuel economy? I'll read off the EPA number first. So for the hybrid all-wheel drive, we're sitting at 35 mpg combined is what it is rated at. It is worth noting that's a 2 mpg down from before in the 2024, but I think they were just doing some slight tweaking in the adjustment itself. Nothing really is all that different powertrain-wise. And you can get up to 38 mpg if you choose the very basic hybrid blue model. But what did we get after living with this for a week? Well, we drove 200 miles and we were sitting at 34.2 mpg. That represents mixed driving, so both highway and city across that 200 miles. And overall, I'm pretty impressed with that to be only about a half mpg less than what the EPA is rated at. Basically tells me that you can expect to get that 35 mpg, and it's not going to be a huge discrepancy, which is actually what we had seen before in the Tucson when we tested that out.
Yeah, more or less the EPA rating is more realistic this year than it used to be.
Yeah. And to tie everything in a nice bow, after living with this Tucson for 7 days, do we like it better after living with it, the same, or worse? And I think I speak for everyone. It's got to be better, because this vehicle is really holistically such a good product in this segment. I actually had not spent any time with a refresh model because I did have to skip out on the media drive. So coming into it with the, previous model in mind, this is a huge improvement. And even though it doesn't look that different on the outside, this interior is so much more functional, and it really is one of the very best in this segment. I think Hyundai really just has kind of nailed it with this refresh model. And now let's talk pricing. As I said at the very beginning of the video, you start at around $28,000 for the base SE model with front-wheel drive. As you move up the trim structure, you end in this Limited. This is the most expensive model, $38,295. If you want one as equipped, like what we have done today, it's going to be a little over $42,000 to $43,000, so just keep that in mind, which isn't a bad price point for this segment of vehicle. Now, if you're looking to buy a Hyundai Tucson or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool for dealership negotiation and can help dealers start competing on price. We even have a monthly payment tool if you're interested in checking that out. Again, you can find that in our video description, and we also have a pinned comment at the top of this video. Buying a vehicle is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's dive into resale and reliability. First up, let's talk about resale value. As an economics graduate myself, Drew and I took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for this Hyundai Tucson's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it'll be worth 55.3% of original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 19.6%. Now, it's worth noting those are above industry average for all vehicle makes. However, it's not quite as good as some of the other brands you may be cross-shopping, such as Toyota, Honda, or Chevy.
Now, we've also done the same for reliability by developing the Combined Reliability Index. This takes into account several studies from trustworthy sources on reliability and combines them in a way that gives you a holistic picture. In this regard, Hyundai is rated just a slightly below the overall industry average for all vehicle makes.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values, reliability data, or our methodology, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a very big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. Also, if you're looking to buy a Hyundai Tucson, we want to remind you of their warranty. It's a 5-year, 60,000-mile basic setup, 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain, and Hyundai is also including 3 years and 36,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. And guys, that's going to be it for our in-depth 7-day review of this refreshed 2025 Hyundai Tucson. If you enjoyed watching this video and finding our 7-day impressions helpful, we'd really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to get the latest car reviews such as this. You're also going to get a lot of 7-day content as well. So we definitely encourage you to subscribe down below. If you're already part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.